Yeah, we're live. By the way, to mention it right off the bat, we have these shirts coming. Should be in stock in the next week or so. So they're on their way. In fact, I'm going to be doing a big thing with shirts and camshafts available because I have the $179 cams available. So if you've got an LS and you need a camshaft for it, these are good cams. Plus, you're going to get a shirt. So it's a good deal. But today I want to talk about the choices that you have when we start talking about a combination that has a centrifugal supercharger on it. Doesn't have to be. The photo that I have up is Brian Tooley Racing's the short runner equalizer manifolds or the Trinity manifolds, those kinds of things. Holly has low rams and TSP has versions of these and stuff. But what I want to talk about is, and this applies to every engine family, not just LS, small block, big block, Dodge, whatever you want, imports, it doesn't matter. So the question becomes, hey, first we need to understand how a centrifugal supercharger works. What does it do? And then what do we want to do to either, improve upon where it's less efficient or enhance where it is efficient? Because those are really be two choices. So if you got a centrifugal supercharger, the way that a centrifugal supercharger works, you bolt a Vortec or a ProCharger or a Torque Storm and that kind of thing on there. You run that. Basically, you can think about it as a crank-driven, pulley-driven. It has the impeller normally that's very similar to a turbo. With a turbo, we use exhaust pressure, exhaust flow to spin a turbine wheel, and then that's connected to the compressor wheel, and that spins the compressor wheel. And then when we spin the compressor wheel, it draws air in and forces it into the motor, and then we have boost. On a centrifugal blower, very similar impeller design, but they're using the engine to spin that thing. And so the problem is that, or one of the things that dictate the efficiency of a centrifugal supercharger and where it wants to make boost is the fact that it's mechanically coupled to the motor. A turbo is not. A turbo just relies on exhaust pressure. So what you can do is, if once you get the turbo spooled up, you can make lots of boost, and then we regulate that boost with a wastegate. With a centrifugal blower, we don't normally do that. There are guys that do that spin them fast and regulate the boost and blow off the excess. None of the supercharger manufacturers will recommend that you do that, by the way. But the way that it normally works is you put a pulley on it so that you get the amount of boost that you want at whatever usually the maximum engine speed is. So because what happens is with a centrifugal blower, the boost curve rises with engine speed. So at 2,000 RPM, you might only have 1 or 2 pounds. At 6,000 or 6,500 RPM, if you pull it, you might have 10 pounds. Or if you pull it, you might have 15 pounds, and then you have 2 pounds or 3 pounds or whatever when you start out with. So however you pulley it, you get this rising boost curve. So it makes the most boost at the top of the RPM range, whatever that is. So the question then becomes, let's say that we have a 5.3 from the wrecking yard with a cam in it. Even if we had a stock one, it wouldn't matter. So we have let's start out with the stock one. So we have a stock one, and it makes peak power at 5,500 RPM. When we run it with a stock cam and stock intake manifold, stock cylinder heads, we put a centrifugal blower on it. What's going to happen is, it's obvious. The first thing is going to make a lot more power. So we pull it. Let's say we want 10 pounds at the top of the RPM range. We run it out, and what happens is we have a rising boost curve. So we also have a rising efficiency curve. So what happens with the centrifugal blower is it will extend the RPM range where this thing makes peak power, because it's forcing extra air in. And as we go up with RPM, it's forcing more and more air in. So the motor becomes more efficient with more RPM. Eventually this will subside and you'll get to where the thing makes peak power. But what happens is, instead of making peak power at 5,500 RPM with our stock cam and our stock heads and our stock intake manifold that are designed to run there, you might shift it up by 500 RPM or more, depending on how much boost you're running and what the combination is. So you can increase the engine speed just by putting, or the effective engine speed just by putting the blower on, all by itself. So now, instead of revving at 5,500s at the horsepower peak, or maybe a little bit beyond that, now you got an extra at least 500 RPM to play with, and more than that, actually, because now if you go up another 500 RPM, you'll add even more boost. Even though the power curve may have leveled off or be falling off a little bit, it's still making way more, obviously, than it did NA. So all of that's good. So the question then becomes, hey, what other things should I put on this motor? What should I change on my 5.3 to have it make more power with the centrifugal blower? Well, on an LS, and really on any combination of 5-liter Ford or small block Chevy or Dodge or whatever, you should be thinking about a camshaft. The stock cam obviously was never designed to run to maximize power and run at higher engine speeds and be efficient up there. So we put a camshaft in. We put a truck Norris. We put a low buck truck. We put whatever kind of camshaft in that we want. And in centrifugal blower stuff, I usually pick, depending, and this is going to depend on what you're wanting to do, and we'll talk about this. If you're going to try to make lots of power with a centrifugal blower, I usually pick a much bigger camshaft on that kind of application than I do on a turbo. The reason for that is we can pick a small cam on a turbo. The turbos can spool itself up and make all the boost, and then the turbo is going to dictate the power. With a centrifugal blower, what happens is two things. One, we want to run more engine speed because a centrifugal blower gets better as it goes up in blower speed. So blower speed is engine speed. And so if we go up with more RPM, we make the thing more efficient and we make it more powerful. Also, the camshaft itself will make the motor more powerful NA. That will have an effect of lowering the boost at the same RPM, but still make more power. So anything that we can do to lower the pressure that the centrifugal blower has to work against, the better off we are. So on a centrifugal blower application, we like to do things like putting camshafts in it, bigger camshafts than I would run on a turbo combination. The other thing you can do is, and the reason that I have the thumbnail up, is that you can also change the intake manifold to, again, enhance power production higher in the RPM range. So one of the ways that you get a motor to optimize power at a higher engine speed is you shorten the runner length. So you put one of these BTR Trinities or equalizers or low rams or high ram or those kinds of things. You put that thing on there where now the motor wants to be more efficient at this higher engine speed. Well, the trade-off or the benefit is the extra gain that you get is that the blower is also being more efficient at that new engine speed. And you've lowered the boost because you've made the NA motor more efficient. So we have lots more power from the intake manifold, lots more power from the blower. We have a reduction in boost, which is good because the thing flows more air at a lower boost at any given blower speed. So all of that's good. So if you're trying to maximize the power output, having the NA motor make more power and having it make more power at a higher engine speed, always beneficial. So big power is what you're looking for. More motor efficiency. You can also go with more displacement too, but more motor efficiency, more motor RPM, short runner manifolds, wilder camshafts, and then cylinder heads too. If you can get the thing to flow more air, we do the same thing. If you go from a stock 5-liter HO cylinder head to an Airflow Research 185 head, we've made the motor much more efficient, especially if we have a good intake manifold on there and a good camshaft. We've made the motor more efficient. We have our blower on there. The boost is going to come down and the power is going to go up. All of that's good. So same thing with cylinder heads. But we can look at it the other way also. So if we go back to our stock combination and we see that we have or let's take a combination that has a camshaft in it. So let's say we've picked a big camshaft in it. We've got our combination, it's got a big cam in it. We got our centrifugal blower. The blower's not making very much boost down low. It's making all the power up top, but that's not really what you want. You want more power down low. So what do? Well, then in that case, you would try to put a camshaft in it or an intake manifold in it that would enhance low speed power. So for the intake manifold, that would mean a long runner intake manifold. That means that a stock truck in the LS, a stock truck or a Trailblazer SS or a fast manifold, something that has long runners on it, the cross ram deal from Holley or Edelbrock, those would be better suited with the longer runners to make more power down low, to try to enhance the power where, let's face it, the centrifugal blower is not making very much boost down low, and it's not quite as efficient as a positive displacement blower, or in some cases, depending on the size of the turbo either. So if we get the turbo to spool up, make lots of boost at 3,000 RPM, and carry that 10 pounds of boost all the way across, that's going to have a better curve than if we have a rising boost curve that eventually hits 10, but doesn't do it till the top of the RPM range. So how do we enhance low speed power? The same way we do at NA. That's exactly what we're doing. Long runner intake manifolds on a Ford, the long runner, GT40 style or a Systemax or any of those, the trick flow stuff, the track heats and the track maxes and all any of the long runner dual two-piece EFI manifolds for the Ford stuff. All of those work really well. And if you're looking at carbureted stuff for any kind of combination, small block, big block, or Dodge, whatever, a dual plane, better choice than a single plane for low speed power. Same thing with camshafts. We do, instead of running a 224 or a 230 or a 240 degree duration camshaft, we switch back into a 6212 or a 212, 218, those kinds of things. We go back to smaller camshafts that are going to be better at enhancing power down low. So if we combine that, the one thing that I probably wouldn't do is I probably wouldn't try to adjust that with cylinder head. I haven't seen where small port heads or more restrictive heads make more power down low than better heads. I mean, if you went to an extreme, if you took a 302 5-liter head and compared it to a Boss 302 head on the same combination, you have to change the intake manifold too, obviously. But then you might see some sort of difference. But if you take a stock set of 5-liter heads off and put an Airflow Research 165 head on, you're probably not going to lose any power in the reasonable RPM range. From 2000 on up, you're probably not going to lose any power at all. So for low speed power, I still would pick a better cylinder head if you wanted to do that, or just leave the stock one on there and let the camshaft and the intake manifold take care of it. But on a 5-liter application, you would be better served to have a better cylinder head on there. On the LS stuff, a cylinder head is probably not something that I would recommend because the stock cylinder heads are already really good. So a 706 head or 799 head, definitely a cathedral port head if you want more low speed power. And then a long runner intake manifold, the truck intake manifold, the Trailblazer SS and LS6, that kind of manifold, the fast manifold would be good, although the others would be a little bit better way down low. And then a mild camshaft, the low buck truck that I have for 179, the truck Norris cam, something small to try to enhance torque production in the lower RPM range where the centrifugal blower is not doing well. And then you just rely on the blower to add the power at the top because it's going to do well up there. And as I said, even if you have a long runner intake manifold, it's going to enhance power production beyond where that intake manifold actually wants to be efficient at. So if you have the motor and you got a camshaft in it, it's making peak power at 6,200, you'll have no trouble with a centrifugal blower running to 6,500 or even 7,000, like I said. So if you did things to enhance the power down low and that's where you wanted it, that's kind of the way to go. So that when you're looking at centrifugal blowers, we all don't choose the same thing. We all don't choose the 8,000 RPM cog belted, camshaft that has 240 or 250 degrees at 50 with big heads on it and a short runner manifold and try to maximize power. We're trying to make 2,000 horsepower, 2,500 RPM or 2,500 horsepower. I'm talking really mostly about street strip guys that are in the 1,000 horsepower or maybe a little bit more range because it's so easy to make power now. The 1,200 and 1,300 horsepower stuff is now the 1,000 horsepower stuff because it's so easy. Because if you take a heads cam and intake manifold, even a 5.3. I mean, that's going to be near a 500 horsepower deal. And it's not that hard to get to 1,000 from there. And beyond that, especially if you put a supercharger on there that's capable of flowing that, a Vortec YSI or the F1A94 from ProCharger, that kind of thing. TorqueStorm has dual blowers set, so it's pretty easy to make the kind of power. If you want to do that stuff, choose the blower accordingly. And then depending on which way you want to go, do you want to enhance low speed power, pick the low speed stuff. You want to enhance top end power, pick the top end stuff and combine it with boost and away you go. So we'll see what everybody's got going on today. We need a poll. Okay, so the poll for today is: would you try to enhance the low speed torque on a centrifugal blower application? Would you enhance the low speed power to try to get more of what the centrifugal blower is lacking? Would you go that route versus like doing all the top end stuff? Eric, ProCharge, Mopar, what's up? Another cam chat with Boost. I thought this was settled here many times. No, it's not. But it's not just about cams. Actually, it was about intake manifolds more than that. Do centrifugal blowers not use draw through carburetors because of fuel atomization problems? Just curious why we've never seen that done before. I think you could do it. I don't know about the sealing of the bearings on there, but you could do a draw through. Tom, Richard, have you heard from the following people: Julius, Todd, Turbo Monza, or Dan? Not Turbo Monza. I have heard from Julius. I have heard from Todd, and Dan has been around a couple of times. I was reading up today on the Holley one barrel. The thing that has me concerned, and I'm going to talk to Eric and Ish about it, is it's selectively set up for a 4, 6, or 8 cylinder. And I'm wondering if we can make it work by programming as a 6 cylinder on the 3 cylinder. I think as long as we can adjust the fueling enough that's going to be okay, because I might have to try to run the timing not computer controlled, just run it on the distributor. So we'll see if that's possible. Otherwise, I don't know if we're going to be able to run that Holley on there. We'll have to see. I sold my LML, then picked up a 6-liter. Definitely missed the torque. What's an LML? Traction is a problem in near all vehicles once 500 to 600 foot-pounds hit down low, 1500 to 2000 RPM. 11 speed freak. I've got a small block Chevy and a 67 Camaro with a Holley Commander 950. That's pretty old school. Dart Pro on heads and fully forged bottom end with roller valve train. Any idea what a safe max power would be for this setup? What camshaft is in there? I mean, are you trying to run a blower, a turbo, or something on there? Because whatever NA power that combination is making, you're safe doing that. Did you ever get the head back from David Vizard? Yeah, long ago I got that. Didn't Turbo Monza also have a head he was porting for you? He had 3,800 heads that he was doing, yeah, but I haven't seen him or heard from him for a long time. LML is a Chevy Duramax. Okay. Have you heard anything as far as going down to West Texas? You mean when am I going down there? Very soon. And if it doesn't happen in the next couple of days, I'm just going to refund that so that you have that, and then I can worry about if I have another one, and then we can redo that. I'd rather not hold somebody's money. Would it be worth increasing the stroke to improve low speed torque? That's another good way to do it. If on a 4.8 or 5.3, you can make a 383 out of it, or on a 6-liter, you can make a 408, and that adds power everywhere, but it definitely enhances low speed torque. And you would have then, if you did a supercharged 408 instead of a supercharged 6-liter, let's say, you'd have a lot more low speed power. And or you could also make a lot more top end power because it's bigger. ProCharger PUNSC making 16 pounds through a huge air-to-air intercooler, large comp cam, hence the Holley 950. Do you have enough fuel with that Commander 950? How big of an injector do you have in there, or injectors do you have in there? Is there enough to feed that combination? Because 16 pounds on that combination, depending on the cam you have, you could be near 1,000 horsepower with that. Richard, would it be possible to have a small turbine engine that's driving a centrifugal blower that's feeding a big block? What are you going to drive the turbine engine with? What's driving that? Or what does it run off? You're going to have another engine to drive the blower, and then the blower feeding the regular motor? Speed Freak. It has 60-pound injectors, but it only has 4 of those, right? Oh, it has 8 of them. Okay, I was going to say 4 of them is not going to be even close. Yeah, those won't feed 1,000 horsepower. So your engine combination is strong enough to handle as much fuel as you have. And I'm hoping that you have a boost reference fuel pressure regulator so that you're not reducing the fuel flow even more. Because 60-pound injectors, 8 of them at 11.5 to 1 air fuel, which is where you should be, is going to be like sub 900 horsepower. Of an FPR boost reference. Okay. So that will help as long as the fuel pressure is and the pump is able to keep up. As long as the fuel pressure is rising with boost pressure, then you're fine. GM wants $13,000 for a Duramax fuel kit replacement. Wow. Seems like a lot. Aeromotive A1000. Yeah, I would just make sure that hopefully you're monitoring fuel pressure. I would make sure that you don't have a falling fuel pressure problem. You did before you had you built a surge tank? So did you have a feed to the pump problem then? Richard, when we see more of the Gen 2 LT1 stuff? I just put up a couple videos on that. Tom, how does, just think about how a carburetor works. More airflow is more fuel, right? And then you just jet it and put power valves and things in it. So in relation to, you're changing the amount of fuel you're supplying in relation to the amount of airflow. Blow through carburetors work well. On a serious note, I've somehow not encountered the newer deactivation system strategy GM implemented and didn't know AFM was now DFM. I don't know what the difference between those two things are. Is this something that just happened this year or something? So, pilot, getting rid of that would be the same. You just have to, you can't just replace half the lifters anymore. You have to replace all of them. And it just means that every lobe on the cam now is an AFM lobe. Would replacing the gear drive with a CVT style drive work? Yeah, the Pro Charger tried doing that, but it wasn't very successful. Yeah, Pilot. I haven't seen them, but I would suspect that they would have used existing technology when they did this, and so they would have if they're doing it on all the cylinders, then it just means more um, oil feed lines and more lifters, and then a change on the lobes. And I don't think you'd want compatible cams with that. DVT stuff, I think, is a good idea, but I don't think that the DFM is a good idea. Just finished my first gen Tacoma with a LS383 and Holley Terminator X, the VS 7875. Has a stock T56, so I think that's the weak link. The the transmission strength is going to be a function of the abuse. Are you dumping the clutch on it and stuff? Otherwise, they'll take a lot of roll-on power stuff. I mean, we run stock transmissions in our Bonneville Hondas that are making 500-600 horsepower. Yeah, the abuse and the amount of traction. Yeah, it's just the load that you're applying and the suddenness of the load. Yeah, shock loading is not good. That's hard on everything. But that's what people want to do, though. We want to shock load stuff. That's how we show our love for our parts. It's just doing donuts. Because that's, that's part of the fun of having a car. We need golden retrievers on the channel. We have 3 of them, and Milo's 14, and the puppies are just past 1 year apiece. Yeah, and I agree. I mean, I'm a fan of all dogs, but the Goldens are amazing. Speed Freak, it's only 2-wheel drive, so the rears are working. As long as there's no traction, that's actually okay. Spinning the tires is not hard on the transmission. It's just when they do hook up, or if you like the initial shock load of stuff. One of the problems we had with our T56 when we were road racing were the what the heck were they called? The guys from the Reka team came over and told us about it because they had run them in the Vipers and told us that they had to do billet versions of them. I forgot what the heck they're called. It's not shift forks. It's some small little part in the transmission. I can't remember what it was called. replace all the little parts in the T56 that you're talking about. Blocker rings, I think, is what, maybe that's what they were. I'm trying to remember. This is back in 95 or 96. But that's what happened. One of them had broken off and lodged the thing in gear, and so I had to run the whole race in one gear, which is just not cool. But it's pretty consistent on my lap times, though. Do you worry about your dogs in contact with rattlesnakes? This time of year, I always go with mine. She goes out and does her business. We have a vaccine just in case. I used to take my dogs out all the time to our ranch and go look for snakes, and I found lots and lots of rattlesnakes, and they never found any, which is good. And if I see a snake, I keep them away from them. But that's obviously always a possibility. Tim, where's the pizza? We actually had pizza last night. Friday night, movie night, date night, pizza night. It was all that. It's Friday. I've actually been out a couple times looking for snakes. I found a couple over by where where my son has to go for soccer games and for soccer practice. And over in that area, there's a bunch of snakes. And interestingly enough, I haven't seen any rattlesnakes over there. Usually that's what I see more often, but we've seen gopher snakes, garter snakes, and king snakes over there, but no rattlesnakes. So it's kind of nice. My buddy Jimmy just sent me a picture of a snake that he found by his house. It's a copperhead, I think. Let me take, if I remember right. Yeah, beautiful little copperhead. I've never caught one of those. Those are beautiful snakes. Waiting at the house here, ready for a battle with Comcast and their garbage service. That's not good. Tom, Lisa's doing well. We'll do a happy hour in horsepower before too long here because it's nice out now, so we can go sit outside at the place where we go to. Did you catch Tony's latest video? Is Turbo Lincoln got 80 horsepower nitro shot? I haven't seen that. It works good with the turbo, though. What's next for the videos? I'm working on tests that I did on my cams. So I have dyno tests on those. And then I have some more 5-liter stuff. And actually, I was just looking at putting the Holly while I'm here because I have the Metro, putting the Holly on the Metro. I don't know if it's going to work, though. I'll have to see. Richard, how would you differ the use of an L-Block Performer and Performer RPM? Would you choose different cam timing? Well, I would choose those two intake manifolds for different applications. Honestly, I don't know that I'd ever choose a Performer. If you're talking about carbureted intake manifolds, I don't think I'd ever pick a Performer over an RPM. Yes, I have cams for LS motors. They're $179. And I have a low buck truck and then a truck plus. The truck plus is better than the low buck truck from about 53 or 5400 on up. The low buck truck is better there. It's about 65 horsepower and 80 to 85 horsepower between that they gain over the stock cams. I'm wanting to put it's a Holly 1-barrel 1100 replacement 1-barrel throttle body setup EFI that's supposed to go on the 6-cylinder inline Ford, either the smaller ones all the way up to the 300s, but from the early to mid 60s. And so it replaces the carburetor, and it's for that application, and it's programmable. You can select 4-cylinder, 6-cylinder, or 8-cylinder, but obviously there's no 3-cylinder in there. And it can control or not control the timing. So we can have just a regular distributor on there that, we can adjust manually. But the distributor that I have in there now with the factory fuel injection is controlled by the computer. So what I would need to do is get a distributor that's not computer controlled if we can run this throttle body on there. If not, we have a standalone Haltech that we can run on it. The original 5-liter Mustang engine is unique. Yeah, it is weird looking. It's very, very long runner and small. I've been on YouTube breaks. I haven't talked about it, but how do you foresee the Hurricane Inline 6 turning out? I know nothing about it, have never seen one, don't know any of the specs, don't know the size, don't know the flow rates of anything. So I don't have any idea. I mean, a factory turbo motor is always good because they always leave a bunch on the table. Whether or not I don't really see something else becoming the 2J because I don't know that anybody's going to make a block like that, but or have that sort of following. It would take a long time before that would happen. That doesn't mean it can't be a good 6-cylinder like the 4200 or others, the RB obviously. That doesn't mean it can't be a good one, but I don't know anything about it though. Steve, you went on the Hot Rod Power Tour. That's cool. I follow Lucky and a couple of guys that were on there. Running the sloppy best cam, would yours be improvement over that? No, I would just keep that one. I mean, the one that I have would make more low speed power, but the other one not more top end power. You see the video of the big red Camaro, R.J. Gottlieb and the magazine reporter from 1980 are teaming up again for the Silver State. Oh, they are going to? For 1989, that would probably be Joe Pettit, I think, is the guy that rode in it. He's the only guy crazy enough to ride with RJ in that car at 200 plus miles an hour in the Silver State. That would be fun. I mean, that's a cool deal. I was there in 89 when he ran that car. I'd have to go back and see what his average was. I don't remember it being more than 190 though. Surprised that there aren't any cheap centrifugal superchargers. I've seen one. There was a copy of the Vortec, but I don't know what ever happened to it. Hearing Calvin spool up at Sick Week sounds like a Supra. Yeah, the 4200 is a 4-valve. It's bigger than a Supra, which is nice. Which, the problem with a 3-liter low compression motor is that, I mean, we all know they can make a bunch of power with a big turbo on it, but they're not great NA motors for making power, not at that compression, obviously, and at that displacement. And that's the problem with spooling a big turbo. But a 4.2 liter motor can spool a turbo much better than a 3-liter can. I mean, obviously, all that goes out the window if you're talking about two steps or spool valves or those kinds of things. The ultimate street racing in the Silver State, yeah. I'm wondering if we continue to see backlash on the EV stuff, if we might not see Hemis come back. Although if that one inline 6-cylinder makes lots of power, then, that would be good. Putting together a Gen 4 iron block 30 over LS3 heads. Have a D1. Should I go 408 stroker? If you're buying forged rods and forged pistons and a forged crank, then you would make more power if you go bigger. But if it's cheaper to do rods and pistons in a in that motor and keep the stock crank, and you're not going to hurt the stock crank. At least I haven't seen that happen. The Silver State's a lot of fun. I mean, in anything, it doesn't matter. You don't have to have the fastest car there now. The fastest average speed has been a Cup car, and that's the perfect car for it because it has enough suspension travel and stuff. I bet Dodge's secret be the inline six will handle 1,000 horsepower. You would think if the engineers were trying to replace the Hemi stuff that was up near that would be a goal. And since they already had the information or had been working with the Cummins stuff, they should know how to make a really strong block. Richard, I've been following the 6 summer races, and the 2 guys running the turbo 4.2s were consistent and impressive. Yeah, they're making good power. I've seen some either Facebook or Instagram posts on that stuff. The Cat X Hurricane is 1,000 horsepower C170 Hemi equivalent crate motor. Okay. Richard, would you mind looking at a comp 412? Okay. It's a 31 and not a 35. So it's a 31, 412. That's a Magnum camshaft. I'm not really a big fan of single pattern camshafts. $206 on a 110. That should be fine for a mass air deal. It's not going to. I don't know. I'd have to ask Mark to see if it would work with a speed density one. If you have a MAF conversion on, it's fine. I don't know. I don't have any idea on the factory computer stuff. I don't know what computer you have, and I even if you told me which one it is, I don't know how effective it is. It should work with a MAF conversion on if you have that on there. What's the highest horsepower on a P1SC that you've seen? I don't know. We've done more than 1,000 horsepower on a D1SC, and so I think that would be comparable. Need new Demon 170 block is new with a bunch of extra ribbing to make it to add strength. Yeah, I think that they were making something for 1,000 horsepower. And 1,000 horsepower OEM rating is different than 1,000 horsepower like our junkyard rating. GM never designed the 4.8s and 5.3s and 6.0s to make 1,000 horsepower. That wasn't on their radar when they designed the blocks. If they were designing a block for 1,000 horsepower usage in an OE application, it would be way different. But it then shows you what you could get away with. I had somebody send me or make a comment on one of the videos and talking about a test that he did. He didn't have any data, unfortunately. He just had subjective feel. But he went from a dual pattern cam to a single pattern cam. And actually tightened up the LSA a little bit too on the single pattern cam, but the lift was the same. The intake duration was the same. And he changed the exhaust duration, obviously, since from a split pattern to a single pattern. And he said it felt a lot better down low. He said he did lose power on the top, which is exactly what I would expect to happen. ETR Trinity or any short runner with a D1, am I giving up too much down low on a 4,200 pound stick car? My question would be, how high are you? Where are you shifting at? What RPM range are you running this thing at? I'm hoping that we advance past EV stuff, whether it's hydrogen or something else. That, I mean, I think we'll still be doing internal combustion for a long time. I just hope that it's not going to become a mandatory thing, because we don't have grid structure for that. We have, somebody has mentioned some of the precious metal stuff. Although Elon Musk seems to think that the lithium thing is easily solved with sodium, with salt. And then now they're going to do mining the ocean floor with those nodule deals that have a bunch of material in them that's going to ruin the ocean floor too. So no matter what we do, it's going to be bad. The stock LS3 was still making power before it lifted ahead at 7,200. Okay. And why did it lift ahead? Was it a timing problem or something? We don't normally take the aluminum LS3 motors beyond 1,000 horsepower. I don't think that they have the structure for that. Let's talk about something real. Opinions of Engine Masters going away. I think that everybody feels the same way, that they would like it to continue. Camaro T1, what's going on? Stock sealed motor. Yeah. So it's a ring gap then. Yeah, I think obviously there's still a market, certainly in the United States, for Engine Masters. I think that's good. It's not the giant. They're not giant snails. They're it's growth. What the heck are those things called? I just watched a special on it. But at any rate, and it's way down deep. It's like 3 miles deep. So it's hard to get, but not impossible. Who's going to replace Steve? Nobody's going to replace Steve, because they're not filming Engine Masters anymore. So that's the replacement thing is all irrelevant. And there's no reply. I can't do what Steve does. He's not. He's the dyno guy. Weren't you in that show? Yeah, that was actually my show. They're only going away because the audience isn't there to support it. Not like it was. Younger demographics don't follow them, sadly, or have an interest. Only 30 or 7. So when I say younger, I meant 16 to 25. None of that's accurate. That's not at all why the show isn't, why they're not having the show anymore. It has nothing to do with demographics. And it's not because they didn't have an audience. They still had a tremendous audience. That's not it. Can't blame Gen X or whoever, whatever generation we want to blame for that. Yeah, Pat, a stock sealed LS3 is probably not ideal to try to max out. It definitely will break stuff. I'm surprised you lifted a head though. Lifting a head, usually it'll break a piston. Lifting a head is normally tune. That's usually a timing issue. We should try to enhance the low speed torque on a centrifugal blower application. 66, 2/3 saying yes. Donald, you're feeling better today? That's good. That's good. That's good. I think I need to try to find a non-computer controlled distributor off of the carbureted Metros. How to rebuild for better fuel mileage. Ooh, and the eco motor. Let's see. I was checking to see, but they're talking about gapless rings and things like that. Oh, people. I'm just going to build a ramjet rocket engine. Like Vin Diesel. Yeah, that was a little bit much. Go into space. Yeah. That's always the answer. Although I did like Jason X in outer space. Because, you're going to have a horror movie, the next thing to do is go to space. They did that with Scooby-Doo and Josie and the Pussycats and all that, right? The blower stuff was cool. I drove around a long time with my 5-liter. And one of the things that, especially if you run a stock 5-liter, and meaning a stock HO upper and lower intake manifold particularly, but also the stock heads and the stock camshaft, if you have that, you have no basically RPM potential. It doesn't make power. It's like a tune port small block Chevy. It was Ford's version of the tune port motor. And so it makes lots of torque, but doesn't make hardly any horsepower and doesn't want to rev. The centrifugal blower makes that a lot better. So putting a Vortec on there helps a lot. And now it feels, oh, this motor wants to rev now. Well, yeah, it's kind of artificial, but it's doing that. But then when you do the other things, like eventually it was the crane version of that 224, 232 camshaft in it. And then we put the high port heads on it. And then when we started playing with intake manifolds, the GT40 and the Cobra stuff and things like that, then it would really rev. We used to think that running 6,000 or 6,200, oh, that's a lot. It would be you realize that, hey, we can run RPM in these things, like another 1,000 RPM on top of what the stock thing was doing was quite a bit. Have you ever tested low friction rings? Low tension rings are done all the time on race motors, but I don't think I ever have done a back-to-back test on them. I think that they have at West Tech, because I think that Evan and Steve did a ring test. And I think it probably was a low tension deal. I would have to go back and look up the data and see. I think he did it for a magazine story. But low tension rings are a real thing. Otherwise, we wouldn't see them in different forms of racing. You want to balance the ring tension versus blow by, and in the case of oil rings, oil consumption. But low tension rings are probably a good idea. So I was looking at a thing on the guys trying to get better fuel mileage, and they were talking about having zero gap rings, and they're talking about changing the tension on them, and maybe a zero gap ring, maybe a low tension zero gap ring might be a good idea for a high fuel mileage car. And I think that that's kind of what they were talking about. The other thing that I would look at is piston to wall clearance on that. Would a Comp 470 cam be a good in a ProCharge 370 motor? Yes. Yeah, that's a pretty good size cam, and on a 6-liter, it would be good. Reverend Evan is a Ford guru. Is there a GM guy out there like him? I'd love to follow him. I kind of thought you were already here. Evan was the editor when I was the tech editor. I thought they were to help rev faster. I don't understand the rev faster thing. Is that how fast it takes throttle or something? I'm more concerned with the power gains from that. I'm more concerned with the reduction in friction, which you would see as power, and then also the containing the combustion, and then controlling the oil. Oil control is important. Okay, 1 minute left. 67%. Still saying you try to enhance the low speed torque on the centrifugal to help that. So does that mean we would try to enhance the top end power of a roots blower, like they do in the OEM applications with their LS9 camshafts, their fancy LS9 cams that hurt low speed power and help the bottom end? I mean, the reverse is that's true. That help the top end and hurt bottom end on the LS9 camshaft. 1 more minute. Katie, you found a Vortec at a junkyard? That's a good score. That's definitely worth grabbing. I wonder, I don't even know how they would sell that if you got that. Richard, do a 5.3 with 243 heads and boost it with a stock cam. Well, why do you think that would do anything different than all of the stock cam 5.3s that I've already run with boost and stock cams? Indy cars have the most advanced piston rings. Is there a way to use exhaust pumping into something like a heavy round tube muffler and spray fuel into it to create thrust? Does the exhaust have any, does it have any oxygen in it? Like speed of total seal, can't talk about it because of a disclosure contract. And so you think that IndyCar would be more technical than Formula One? Yeah, there you go. Alternator for the golf cart. That's perfect. I was going to say smog pump, but either way, because that's how the 2007 half LY5s came. I know, but what do you think that the difference is going to be from running boost on a 706 headed thing or something like that, or running boost on the L33? I don't understand what you think is going to be different. The L33 had 799 heads on it. The head isn't going to change anything. It's going to make NA power, whatever that is, and then it's going to be multiplied when we add boost. You think Formula One and IndyCar are the same ring technology? KD, when you got the blower, did you get the whole thing? Was it a whole kit that was on there? Richard, how bad are beryllium valve seats? You don't want to be machining them. You don't want to be touching them, and you don't want to be standing in the same room with them. It will go in and rearrange your DNA. So it's pretty bad. Lake Speed had a video out last year on low tension rings. Yeah, that's been studied a lot. Yeah, Mike, that's not something you want to be playing with. I think that they outlawed that in Formula One too, because they were using. I think that they were using copper beryllium, but Novi 1200 on a 3.7 Cyclone V6 equals love. Well, yeah, boost in anything is a good thing. Yeah, Mike, I don't think it's something you want to play with. I thought that were they looking into that for like brake rotors too? Planes get low lead. Yeah, but you don't need beryllium seats for that though. Yeah, Matt, that's important. Safety first. On that note, it is time to go, but I will be back. Probably will not be on tonight though. We got some stuff going on. God, what's going on? What's going on? Beryllium copper pistons in Formula One. Cool. I will see you guys all later. Bam, 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 bam.